Farnham, if anybody wants to know that. That's enough Christmas markets for everybody now, isn't it? Mike, how many Christmas markets have you done?
This year?
Yeah.
None.
Oh, wow.
I'm an incredibly boring man. I thought you'd have realised this by now.
Well, that's what boring men do, isn't it? We go to Christmas markets.
I'm more boring than boring.
So no Christmas markets, but I did get stung with an £8 mulled wine the other day, just like standard plastic sort of cardboard cup. So that's I'm done. After that, I was like, no, it's just an excuse. They jack up the prices, right? It's just put it in decorate it a bit and stick some faux sort of Bavarian glitter around it, and suddenly you can jack the prices up. So yeah, done. I'm a Scrooge now.
Do you think somewhere in Munich they start making it look a bit like Croydon? Just is that how it works their end? I don't know why we've gone all Bavarian for Christmas, but yeah, Farnham was done. We've done Winchester, which is a staple, but hopefully that's it.
I can't remember who it was, but there was a town that Rotherham was twinned with in Germany. I just wondered, like, do they ever? It was only like this year thing. They did a special thing years ago, and I always wondered: is this town in like Bavaria just trying to copy Rotherham?
So
like
apparently,
pubs.
I've only got Rotherham twinned with. Oh, hang on, twin towns. Here we go. San Quentin in Aisne, Riesa in Germany, Cluj, which I assume is where Club Cluj comes from, and Zabra in Poland.
That's a decent European draw, that, isn't it?
That's a good Conference League group, that is.
Yeah.
Zabra, Rotherham.
What is Königswinter like, which is what Cleethorpes is twinned with? Where's that? It's near Bonn. Oh, that's very posh then. So what is that? Is it on the Rhine? It is on the Rhine. There we go. It looks just like a
education
little
as well.
Yeah. Everybody knows that Bonn used to be the capital of Western Germany, right? Evening, Stephen. How are you?
Are we on?
Apparently. John says Grimsby is twinned with Bremerhaven, and there's a Grimsby Strasse there. There's a Grimsby Street in where would it be? Where would you say it would be? Shadwell, Stratford. I don't know.
I've driven through Grimsby in Canada, which is not much different to the Grimsby. I don't know about any European Grimsby's, but that's good. Grimsby Strasse.
Let's have a look at Bremerhaven. Let's look at Grimsby. There's a Grimsby Street near Brick Lane.
I tell you what, they do some cracking bagels on Brick Lane. I'll tell you that for free.
Yes, they do.
I've only ever come across two salt beef bagel shops, and they're right next to each other on Brick Lane. The only two I've ever seen.
And have you've done it the proper way, right, Mike? 3 a.m. in the morning, yeah.
Oh mate, round the clock, 24/7, just rotate between each
bagels.
Yeah,
emergency bagels.
Grimsby Strasse is a contraflow road. That's very interesting.
Is it?
To some people.
I said I was a very boring man.
Hey, there's nothing better than a contraflow. That's an interesting way of, getting around your traffic problems. There we go. It's a 50 kilometers an hour, Grimsby Strasse in Bremerhaven. Where's Bremerhaven then?
Germany.
Good. It's near Bremen. Who would have thought it? There we go. There we go. Everyone say hello to John and say hi. He's making his debut. So Thank you. Very nice instead of talking about the Agra. Ben Bristow says Agra over the Brick Lane curry. I don't think that's right.
Brick Lane curry is not good. There's rumours it's just one shared kitchen underneath, right, in the basement, and they all just run it up to different places. I'm with, yeah. I mean, I've not been to the Agra, but I can believe it.
This is it's interesting to see. I don't know. I haven't done Brick Lane for ages, absolutely ages. This is very Grimsby related. I'm sure everybody's enjoying it as we jump from Grimsby to Bavaria to to Brick Lane. There's not much else to talk about on it, Mike. How are you? Have you got all your Christmas shopping sorted?
I have got everything sorted. Absolutely.
Really.
That is not a lie. It's all done.
Have you got much left at all? Let's be honest. This is an open space.
I've got nothing left in case my wife listens to this back. It is all done and all sorted.
Do you want me to release it Christmas Eve so it just panics her a little bit more?
No, I've got quite a lot to do, to be honest, mate.
Okay. Leanne is a devil for just sending me things from Boots. It's like, this is all I want. I just want stuff from Boots. It's like, that's brilliant. I really appreciate it. But is there not anything a little bit snazzier? Do you at least want a Grimsby Town coat? Because
my wife does that. My wife does that. And then when you think about it, the in-laws around on Christmas, what a dick I look that I've bought her some Dove shower gel. What a dick. You know, so you've got to... It's no good sending me stuff from Boots and what have you.
Everybody's now looking at Bremerhaven apparently on Street View. Ben is. So is John Lewis. They have a... Where is Bremerhaven Way in Grimsby then, John? I would Google it, but I want to give you all my
Does
full
anybody
attention.
care?
John and I do.
Oh, well, that's fair enough.
Ben says Brick Lane bagels are superb. They are good.
Boiled,
nice
that's why. Boiled, not baked.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, proper
That makes them
bagels
chewy.
boiled. Yeah.
You
You didn't think you'd be getting this level of expertise when you invited me on, did you, Alex?
Do you know what? I didn't think so. I'm really impressed. Where else in London is that half decent place to go? Where's like the staple places? There's
For
that.
bagels?
No, just in general. There's that. There's that restaurant which is open for people who work in. What's it called? The butcher's place. I'm not thinking of the fish market, but there's the butcher's one, and it's open at like 3 a.m. and does a cracking breakfast. Apparently, I'm glad I can help. Soho. I'll tell you what.
There's some interesting stuff there. I can tell you that there's some interesting stuff there.
There is, yes. I'll tell you what I did do. I had our Christmas do that I organised on Thursday, and I took the wrong laptop home, so I then had to go in on my day off on Friday. So I had a little bit of a trip in. Ben is saying Spitalfields Market in Shoreditch. Thank you. Smithfields. That's right, Andrew. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Not the 3 a.m. Place, but very cool. Oh, right, Spitalfields. Yes, it is. Though they got rid of my favourite place that does Singapore noodles. I hope that helps. I'm apparently hungry. Well, I think we're all right at the moment, aren't we? We did okay. Game got on. None of us went, so that will excite everybody on the show. So if you want to give us your thoughts on how wet it was, are we talking Bromley away wet, or are we talking Birmingham City game called off in 2001 wet? That was very wet.
Where are we on the wetness barometer?
Yes, though we probably won't do that because we need to make sure this is commercially viable.
Should we play the big team?
Bromley away was wet during the game, so I guess there's the difference, right? At least it seemed pretty dry on Saturday, at least for the 90 minutes, if not a bit before. So that's, I guess, there's the difference. At least the game went on, which I think was a miracle. I mean, honestly, I was following it quite closely, and then watching all the posts on Twitter that I loved of all the sort of general de-watering machines, whatever they're called. But then it looked pretty dry during the game, so I think it probably wasn't Bromley away, which was awful.
Problem with Bromley away was there was no let up and there was no escape. There wasn't like an inn, or there wasn't like the little inn on the park in the back where you could just go and hide. It was just unrelenting, and there was lightning, which was very, sinister.
Stockport away was the worst one.
Stockport away. There's been a couple of bad Stockport aways.
Where we was all, I don't know if anybody watching remembers it, but we was all in the stand behind the goal, which was uncovered, and it was so bad with hailstorm. Everybody moved to the side stand, and about 12 of us just decided to be idiots and stay in the stand. So it was that night, if anyone remembers. I think it was Anthony Eldin was playing, so whatever year that was.
Imagine being stuck in a hailstorm having to watch Anthony Eldin play.
Well, it seemed a good idea at the time.
There are punishments worse than that are dreamt up in some CIA black ops site just to keep it going. John Lewis says, my kids used to love the Deutsche Schifferfahrermuseum, which is Maritime Museum. when we used to go to Bremerhaven. Thank you, John. That's great. I don't know what to say about that. We are tempted to go to the little miniature world in Hamburg. If you haven't look it up. It looks amazing. It's like a miniature wonderland. Mike, your kid would love it. Your lad would love it. It's amazing. I don't know what else I can say about it.
He loves everything, bless him.
Oh, good. Just a really positive person.
Yeah. Just a torch, turn it on and off, flashing lights.
That's going to change soon, Mike. Don't worry.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Like, so how old's your lad again, Mike?
He's just turned 5.
So presents still look enormous.
Yeah, although I've had to ban Lego because I'm just, we've packed it all away and I'm still 6 months later still standing on the bastard.
Simon Hodson is coming in for the wettest game, saying Brentford away in 2003 was the wettest game I've been to. I can't even remember that one. John shaking his head, and he might.
Is that the one we lost? Was that the one we lost 4-0?
Oh, that sounds terrible.
When Buckley came back and we had Hayward and. Or was that just no, that was the beginning of the season. That must have been summer.
Oh, it's before Slade. It was Nicky Law, wasn't it? 2003.
Oh, don't say that name.
Oh, I got all my dates mixed up.
That's a
we had a couple of good results there, and then they all went quite bad, didn't we?
Yeah.
Terrible. What was the score? Whoever put that in, was that the one Gary Jones scored in? Or was that? Am I getting my dates mixed up there as well?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think my first season supporting Town was properly, fully, was Slade's first season, and I'm pretty sure that was after that.
Right, I'm gonna have a quick look. The versus Heads Brentford. This is great radio, isn't it? So it was I've got 2008 we lost 4-0 and 2003 we lost 3-1. In 2008 when we lost 4-0, the team was Barnes, Bennett, Hayward, Hope, Newey, Till, Hunt, Heslop, Llewellyn, Danny North, Martin Butler, and Anthony Taylor, Nick Hegarty, Jamie Clark, Gary Montgomery, and Peter Bohr.
Mate, I'm relapsing now. You're saying all those names. I'd forgotten them.
That's a team to get you excited, isn't it?
My hand's shaking now.
Someone is saying we won 3-1 the day of the. Oh yeah, 2003. Sorry, I got the numbers mixed up.
Oh, we won. Yeah, that was Mickey Boulding, wasn't it? He scored 2.
Iffy and Aura. Who did they have in their squad? No one really. Fine. And Darren Mansaram. Who doesn't love Darren Mansaram? We won 3-1, says Simon, says Chris. It was the day of the Rugby World Cup final, says Chris. Ben saying that the miniature wonderland thing in Hamburg is like Legoland. It's not, Ben. It's better. It's so much better. You would absolutely love it. It's the only reason to go to Hamburg, honestly. Especially when you've got kids. Tim Hubbard says wettest experience was Luton 1981 on their open terrace. We lost 6-0. Tim, that sounds like a core memory that has been just rattling around, and we need to sort of help you get it out. No, they do them everywhere, Ben. We don't need to just go there for a hamburger. Brilliant. Shall we start properly?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Open wide for some soccer!
And now the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 1130. Go! At 1130.
I don't think I've ever wanted to be in a stand more than my life around there. They're going crazy. Yeah, they got penalty here. There'll be fish flying about that. There's no tomorrow.
What a magnificent piece of football! A really, really good goal. You can't make it straight like that.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard the DN35 podcast. Mike and John making his debut. Sam is currently wrapping 349 individually bobbled hats for every member of the Conservative Party and is winging their way to them as their secret Santa as we speak, which is brilliant for the club shop at the very least. We'll start with a quick announcement, and then we can go on from that. From Thursday, we're going to be welcoming Jason and Debbie and potentially Andrew, though it sounds like it might be another lay-by job, to the podcast on Thursday. We'll get up the link where you can add your questions. There are quite a few that we can get through. It's a nice little Christmas present for everyone, and we thank them as well for joining us. So once that comes up, we'll give you a bit more detail. But on Thursday, 7:00, we'll be here and we'll be asking for your questions because we can't be bothered to think of them ourselves. But mostly, we got to welcome John making his debut. Thank you very much for joining us, John. You listened yesterday. The Mariners winning their first league game in what felt like forever. What were your takeaways? And are you still dancing on the ceiling?
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, look, I did listen. I wasn't able to watch. I think, like everyone, it sounded encouraging, but we've been there before this season, and I think when that sort of 50 minutes ago, goal went in, everyone's fearing the worst, right? And the nicest thing I think I can possibly say is that in that 15 minutes, I didn't really jump up or get particularly stressed. It felt like we sort of had it under control, except for possibly one half chance or so. So really encouraging. The football sounded great, and I've seen the highlights now. Seen the stuff the club's put up. So yeah, I mean, absolutely delighted. Good performance. You've got to say, I mean, whatever the guy's done in a week and a half or just shy of that, looks to have just absolutely transformed things. And I hope it's not an indictment on the previous regime, because I don't think it's necessarily fair to compare. There's probably unique circumstances there, but let's just sort of focus on the positives in the future. Whatever he's able to do in a short time, the fact is the players seem to be willing to work for him, seem to be enjoying working for him, working for each other. It sounded great, and from the sounds of it, also the fans were sort of in good voice too. So all in all, just very positive, with the caveat that we're sort of 2 games in the league in. Nice that we got that little bounce. It doesn't seem like we often get that. So let's see if we can continue. But early signs look great, don't they?
Mike, it was interesting, and John brings it up. It's been a really quick turnaround. 3 games in a matter of a couple of weeks. Even from the MK Dons game, which you didn't go to. It's been a quick turnaround. Do we put that down to anything in particular? Again, I don't want to make disparaging remarks on Hurst. Is it just the fact it's a clean slate and people feel a little bit, just go and do what you do best sort of thing? What did you, from yesterday's performance? Again, I thought really enjoyable and not too dissimilar to the 2 performances that came before it.
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to it, really. I think first off, you have to, as we've done before, I think we've got to recognise Sean and Ben have probably played a part of that, because I think the football did improve, whilst not to the level we've seen over the last couple of games, but the football did start to improve then. So I think, firstly, they've had an impact on it. But you can certainly see that Artell's come in, and he's definitely trying to play a different way. And the way he's trying to play looks as if, like yesterday, it's going to be something that's going to be really exciting to watch. I mean, firstly, full credit to the ground staff for actually getting that game on yesterday, and giving us a chance to get out there and play that game of football. I think by and large we dominated the game for most of it. There's obviously this Division 4 football, you're never going to dominate all 90 minutes, but I think when Crewe got on top, we managed it well and limited them just to spells of possession without any real major chances. I think the only save I can remember Carr making was a bit of a header in the first half where he saved well, and other than that, they've not really created much. It's clear to see wanting to play with the football, play on the ground and move it around, and I think you can see quite quickly a lot of our players look a lot better than they have done recently when they play that way. Centre backs getting the ball short at every kick out, always trying to play a short option. I think Conte in the middle absolutely dominated the game. I think everything went through him when we were playing out. I'm really surprised Crewe didn't put somebody on him, because every time we're playing the ball, Conte's free in the middle of the park. He's taking a touch, turning and playing it off to Hunt. There was one little bit which I don't suppose many people would remember because it didn't result in anything, but Cartwright played the ball out to Conte. He turned without touching it into Hunt, who played a little blind flick round the corner to Clifton, who one-timed it back to Conte, who played it out onto the wing to Malarkey, all one-touch football, and we're into the final third. And I thought that was, just really encouraging to see on a tough pitch. So if he can continue to do that, obviously one swallow summers and all that, then it's massively encouraging. I would say as well, both the fullbacks look really, really good playing this way. I think Malarkey had a good game, and it's no secret that I'm a massive fan of Anthony Glennon, but I think you saw how dangerous he is when he's playing that way and given the license to get up there and put some crosses in. So really,
he's
really
repaying
good.
your faith, isn't he? That's what it is. It's all for you.
I never had any doubt in the fella. I think sometimes, and this goes back to what we discussed a few weeks ago, I think we always write off footballers when they have a couple of bad games or it's not going well. And this is why I had the faith in this squad that, and again, caveat it's a couple of games, but they look better. So as I said a couple of weeks ago, I have faith that these players are good enough to be a lot better than where they are. And players like Glennon are a shining example of that. You take off the chains, like with Alex Hunt, and they instantly look better. So hopefully more to come. It's a long way to go, but obviously the time he's had on the training field looks like he's got us playing a lot better.
I think the Glennon thing's really interesting. He was hooked off at half time, wasn't he, in one of the games? And that is, sort of the curse of a player. I can't remember what game it was, but they were targeting him and he was getting bullied on the ball.
County? He was brought off in the first half, wasn't he? Notts County.
Yes, yeah, that's right. They put
Mushy on toast, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I think people maybe read too much into it. Who knows whether there was an injury or whether it was just sort of tactics or style. But he sort of trudged off, and I think people were calling him out then to sort of writing him off for the season. He looks absolutely transformed. Whether it's the sort of Samson-esque hair kind of giving him his powers back or something. But yeah, absolutely incredible. I think both fullbacks. We were at the MK Dons game, Alex. I thought Malarkey was absolutely fantastic that game. And just back to what I was saying about that sort of short space of time, even in that MK Dons game, that passage of play you just described there, Mike, we were seeing that sort of stuff in the first half at MK Dons. And you sort of have to ask yourself the question, where's this team been? How low was confidence? What was going on? Maybe there's a slight story going on behind the background, behind the scenes that we weren't privy to. But clearly the potential's there. We've been saying it all season. Better than last season, better team on paper, better than the position suggests. It's great to finally see it. I've got to say two things about Artell that sort of struck me. The first was the reason why I went to MK Dons in the first place. Obviously I was sort of umming and ahhing anyway. And then he gets announced, and the club put up a video, and he had this just absolute air of authority about him without even saying too much on the train. They put out this sort of really short video of his first, that hour training that they did. And he had this sort of weird phrase he kept using where he sort of was asking players to do something and had the way of saying please at the end of it. And it was this like quiet authority that was quite unnerving. And I just thought it sort of sent a shiver down my spine. I thought this guy is the real deal. And yesterday, what I thought was really interesting, I don't know if this is going to be a common thing or whether he's sort of seeing it because he's had little time with the players, but he was doing the warm-ups and he was actually there. If you look at the video that the club just put up, the match day moment video, he's there like drilling the players, giving them confidence on the warm-up. I suspect that's not going to kind of continue, but he's clearly got the sort of enough insight into knowing that he can do these little things at the moment that just gives them gives them that little edge, perhaps. And it's really quite encouraging to see, like I say, kind of a quiet authority that just seems to be working wonders. And just finally on him, I guess we might get onto it. But what I absolutely loved about his post-match interview is this idea that he can see things that we're not quite seeing yet. So this idea, he's saying, do you know what? We're doing some good stuff. We're getting some basics right. I'm drilling out into them, but I can see things that Hunt can't quite see yet, how he could hurt the team more. So it feels like there's a plan. It feels like there's a system. And like I said, I hate to kind of make comparisons because I think we all have a sort of soft spot for Hurst and always will. But we just clearly didn't have that, that strategy, that plan. And whatever he's doing, he's clearly working up to something. So I'm excited.
It's interesting you say that about taking the warm-up because I've noticed a couple of times in little bits and pieces he's said about really valuing the early days, getting to know the players, getting to get his message across at every opportunity he's got. We know from what we're told and from the guys from the Crewe podcast that he likes to sit in the stands for the first half. And the reason he does that, according to his interview, is because he gets one time to talk to the players during a game and it's half time and he wants to have seen as much as he could. So it's interesting that he's involved in everything. He's not up in the stands because he's really trying to use every opportunity to get messages across, which I think is brilliant. And as you say about post-match and he's still seeing things, it'd be easy for a new manager, his first home game, he's got 4 points in the league, to just go on about, it was great, X, Y, and Z. But he's always wanting to go, but this and but that. And I don't see it as negative. I just see it as ultra sort of ambitious. He strikes me as a guy that will not accept a standard of being second best and will not accept players playing within themselves. So I think, exciting. He's got a good aura about him. I know what you mean about just how he talks. He's got that please, that teacher or that parent voice when they say please, when they don't really mean please, they mean do it.
It's what you've been trying to emulate for ages, isn't it, Mike? Just that.
I've had a go.
Assertiveness. It just comes out as Oliver Twist asking for more food.
Please, please,
please, Miss Patterson. That's a reference for the kids. Just going through a couple of things. So Ricky says, try not to get carried away, but that's the most I've enjoyed a home game all season. When mistakes were made, I didn't mind as I could actually see what we were trying to do and fancy us next Saturday. Andrew Niles says, when this squad was put together, most people thought the players were better than their predecessor. Maybe Artell's type of football is showing that, which is what he finished on that for those who were watching it. Ricky says it's the loudest I've heard BP for a while, which is something as well that David made a comment of as well during the game. Richard Young says the difference I've already seen is that we're clearly being told to play without fear. Glennon and Hunt are examples of that just by getting them to do the things they're good at. I'm really loving Hunt taking the ball on the half turn and using his body to put distance between the opposition and the ball. I was really enjoying that yesterday. Nigel Holmes says the new manager was continually encouraging the boys, never once criticised. Great to see the passion on the touchline. Hunt showing so much promise. Richard Young says Glennon's hair is going. This is the most important stuff. Glennon's hair is now going through the Beatles timeline. Started as classic twist and shout era Ringo, and is now evolving into the late '60s LSD phase. I want to know when he goes to short beard, peace and love. I'm not going to be signing anything stage, really, Richard. That's what I'm here for. John Lewis says, I would say the only real difference is the lift from a new manager, which resulted in fine margins going our way. The real test will come when we lose a couple and see if confidence drops again. One of my only criticisms of Hurst is that he was never really good at addressing a slide. When we went on those bad runs of form, you were in for a while, and we were certainly in one when his boat was called in. Richard Young says halftime was the first time I've ever seen the subs doing an actual warm up routine. Greg Howard was with them doing exercise rather than the usual kickabout stuff. And that's it really for the moment. Yeah,
just cool. Just a couple of things. I think just to pick up on, I think it was Richard's point or the point before Richard. In terms of if and when things go wrong, I think if that's how we're going to try and play football, and it's not going to happen every week, he's got a big job in front of him and it's going to go wrong. I think if that's how he tries to play football, I think he'll get a hell of a lot more patience and understanding with the crowd, which maybe sometimes Hurst, rightly or wrongly, didn't get, because when we was winning, it wasn't great anyway. So when you're then losing, you've not got that to back it up. But I must admit, I think yesterday was one of the most. It was entertaining, but it was one of the most games I was most engaged in, if you know what I mean. So none of it drifted. I was watching it all the time, and at the end, I'm actually shouting, get out and blow the whistle and all sorts of stuff, which I've not done for ages. It's really sad, but you sit there, watch it, and shout that. So it was really, really engaging, really. And one thing about Artell that sort of comes across from his interviews is we just mentioned about that sternness and getting messages across, but he also seems like not an old-fashioned manager. He seems to understand the nuance of people's lives. And, he said one about, I might not shout at some players because I might learn in 3 weeks that they had, abusive fathers and it doesn't react well. So he seems to understand the psychology of actually not just shouting and being nasty to people, about how to sort of coax these things out on them. And that's probably a lot to do with his youth development as well, because when you're developing young players, you have to sort of know how do you get that potential out of them.
There's a Taylor Blee says, I like the honesty from Artell. I think it's clear why they wanted him. Expressive possession, attacking football. We'll only put bums on seats as well. He made a couple of comments about the crowd being half decent at times. Potential links to Galatasaray, which was interesting.
he said it could be not quite Galatasaray, but not far off. And
be like,
I don't want
Hull.
anybody sticking a flag in.
Yeah.
And what's Matt Dannett put on Twitter like,
if he needs a flag,
35 miles from Hull.
If he needs a flag, there's only one man for the job. We'll make sure. Shall we get that Stella Artois on a little flag? See if it works.
Well, he is from Yorkshire, so we've got to try and ask him to use the phrase "keeper's shape," and then the flag's fine.
No, that's the first album. You know, we can't just keep going back to the stuff we're doing. We're in the LSD phase now, Mike. You know this. We're going in Glennon's hair state. That's all we're doing. Yellow Submarines next. Andrew Nars and Paul Bevan have both made comments about Issa. I've been pretty critical of Issa. I don't think he's shown up at times, and which is what he was criticised for at Scunthorpe and at Bradford as well. But it was a beautiful goal yesterday when he stepped inside, and it was a corner. Again, the corner didn't go past the first post, but it doesn't matter if you curl it in from 30 yards out, is it, John?
I've got to say, I'm with you. I thank God he scored those goals, and for his own sort of reputation and early time at Town, I still think he's got a lot to show. And I was thinking about this just before I came on about sort of areas where we might see some changes coming in, or possibly even out in January. Look, he's done everything he's been asked to do in terms of scoring goals. I don't think he's quite got the beating of a man in him as much as we want to see on the wing. I think it's perhaps him and Ganua that are going to be faced, and I know we've got Vernon coming back, but possibly faced with some competition coming in January. I think that seems like an area on the sort of the 10 out on the pitch playing where we could see some improvement. There certainly needs to be a bit more depth. I mean, you talk about where it could go wrong. We talked about, the importance of Hunt, Conte, Danny Rose. All it takes is a suspension, an injury, and we're pretty short down the middle. And actually to any of Mayer or Rodgers as well. So I think he's got a strength in there. But I think in terms of quality, I think we could see a bit of competition coming in the wings and possibly goalkeeper as well. But yeah, I mean, he's absolutely, he's done, the numbers look good. I think he's still got to show up a little bit. He looks like a confidence player. So when he's playing well, he obviously looks to take on a man. But I don't recall many times this season where he's really taken someone on and beaten them, which perhaps is why he's sort of up for shooting the whole time, because he doesn't quite think he can take it to the byline. But thank God he's got that right foot on him, eh?
He looked, I must say yesterday, I'd agree with that, but I must say yesterday he looked a lot more like that was what he was trying to do. Didn't do as much as I liked, but that was probably because most of the time Glennon was on an overlapping run and he's trying to leave the space there. And I think yesterday those two on the left had a good relationship. So as well as him getting confident, I think it's vital that, whoever's on the left get a good relationship going. And I would say, as good as we were with the ball, I would say I still think our centre backs do look a bit shaky. We've said that last couple of weeks, and I did sort of notice that when they were under pressure, they still went long, which they've not been told to do more often, not as often as they have been, but there was a few occasions where they're under a bit of pressure and they've just put their foot through it. Which I think Artell will probably want somebody that's confident enough to play that into the middle or out wide and play through there. But you can always tell it's when they're not confident. They're just like, I just want to get rid of this football.
Or it's those real safe ones. Given the conditions yesterday, and again, we need to, massive well done to Martin and the team. Me and Mike had an actual debate for once and didn't agree on everything. I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Crewe fans and those coming in had that little bit of ambiguity, a little bit more open and honest, saying, "Look, we're going to try our best. It looks like it's going to clear up, and we'll do our best to try and get it on. We'll keep you up to date." That sort of thing, not too dissimilar, but just worded slightly differently. John might be able to, specify how different, slight different communications might be needed. But it was nice that it got done. Did it affect the play? I said yesterday it was like playing on a pitch of sellotape. The ball didn't travel as true. It wasn't Bromley. It wasn't, flying off on Teflon and ending up in the road's edge just by a gentle pass. But it was difficult conditions. And apparently Town didn't have the wind in the first half either, which is now apparently a massive deal at Blundell Park every game.
I think we had a slight disagreement, then both sort of agreed we're both right and we're both wrong, and there was somewhere in the middle where I think we both got to. I would admit yes yesterday. I think we should have been more clear to everybody about what's going on at those pitch inspections instead of leaving us all to sort of guess that that's what's happening. I would say though, I think credit to the groundsman, but also as Artell mentioned in his interview, credit to the referee. Could have turned up at 11 o'clock, seen the state, and just gone home. He's obviously
the referee was good yesterday. Outside of that as well.
Yeah, but he's obviously given every chance for that game to get on. And now I understand the frustration about when games get called off late. Totally understand that. I think there's two different things, though, for when it's absolutely bloody obvious and you can make a call early, or when it's touch and go. And if it's touch and go, I think you have to take every chance you can to get the game on. You know, we're all football fans. You know, we make the decision to follow it, to follow our clubs. It's not a decision we're forced into. We do it willingly. And sometimes we're going to have to accept.
Speak for yourself.
We're going to have to accept these things happen. But as a fan, I would much rather see a game of football that we saw yesterday rather than just go, oh, do you know what? Oh, it's a bit wet. No, we don't want to do the work. So full credit to them, but also full credit for the ref. Could have turned up and said, no, I'm going home, having a Saturday off.
I think it felt like yesterday really needed to go ahead for us, didn't it? It felt like, I don't know why, there was this sort of atmosphere before the game, maybe because it was Artell's first home game, it was against his old club. So I think absolute fair play to Martin and everyone that sort of got involved in that. I mean, it's such a difficult situation when you're looking at weather reports, when you've got a live pitch, when you've got players' welfare, and you've got fans travelling from far to try and consider and then communicate that. So I'm sort of slightly reluctant to kind of criticize anyone because the situation's moving and it's live, but I think they probably did about as good a job as possible and kept people up to date. You're always going to get a situation because, you know, fans are going to travel down a bit early. Away fans are going to travel down a bit early, and inevitably someone's going to be pissed off at some point, you know, whatever happens, right? So they did about as good a job as they could, but yeah, to get it on, it just felt like we really needed to get it on. I was really genuinely quite anxious, more anxious weirdly before the game than during the game listening to that, because it felt like we had a win in us. It really did. It felt like, you know, there was just a good atmosphere going around, and it was sort of meant to be. So I think fantastic going on, and I'll sort of hold off criticism of any of the comms because, you know, solidarity and all that. So fair play to the social media guys.
It was about Kevin Broughton said it was the referee's first game in the EFL yesterday. So, you know, hopefully long may he continue with that sort of good run of form, because he did himself great favours. Andrew Niall says, I really enjoyed the game yesterday, but Crewe allowed us to play a bit. Hope it works for us against spoiling teams. I think it will. Ben says, if you're anything like the Arctic Monkeys, you're only going to get worse. I mean, Ben, if you're talking about the podcast, we're way past that now. You know, we're into everyone has individually gone off, and instead of listening to the hits, we're now saying, come and listen to one. Why not listen? Here's one from my new album about, you know, genital herpes.
John Lewis LA says, accent just really slowly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, which is what I do anyway when I'm outside of here, you know. John Lewis says leadership isn't about treating everything about the same. I think we're going back to what you were saying, Mike, but treating them as individuals and understanding what makes them tick. Richard Young says, I do think Glennon's early form was partly due to Issa's lack of defensive work. Yesterday was the first time I've really seen him track back and assist Glennon when it was needed. I think that's an interesting point. Richard Taylor Blee says, I think it's clear that what an attacking style manager looks like. Hurst was our classic underdog counter-attack team, you know, and I'll add to that, Taylor, as well, you know, setting up to thwart the opposition. I think that's why he struggled to change his philosophy. What do you think? There was a question that someone came into on X, formerly known as Twitter, and is still known as Twitter, saying that, do you think Hurst was asked to change his playing style, and that's why he brought those players in, but wasn't necessarily able to get the best out of them? And Paul Dawson says, controlled the game, made a playoff top scoring team in the country, look average, marked the performance up due to the state of the pitch. I think that's great. And Mike has got the 4-word reactions because we never use them, even though you all kindly put them in. I like that. This is one of the things I really do like. We ask you for your thoughts, and that tweet never used to get any reaction whatsoever. If we make it into some sort of quasi-like game of going, I can only use 4 words, you're all for it. So I don't know how we can gamify match thoughts anymore, but we'll do our best. Mike, you get to pick out the best ones, and we get to admonish people who don't count to 4 and can't say count to 4.
So first one, Ben Bristow, he says, what was Hurst doing? Then we've got Bickies, who says creative creativity, positivity, fearless, and knackered. He's also then got a whole paragraph. So
hang on, that's 5 words anyway. The and is in there.
I put the and in. You know, it didn't feel right to not have the and at an end of the list. So yeah, my bad. Richard Young, fullback, attack. Nigel Batchers Tash says Conte is a beast. Artell's cartel. Get groundsman a bonus. Lee Williams, just like watching Juve, and Matty Lond, players have belief again.
Is that it?
There you go. There's 4-word reactions.
They're good. Do you know what? Yeah.
I thought that first one is I don't know. It feels like the elephant in the room, right? We've talked about it a couple of times, but and someone messaged there, but the sort of what was Hurst doing one. It really is a sort of really interesting question to pose, because he has had such short amount of time with the same players, with a slight transition period with Ben and Sean at the helm as well. I honestly think we'll look back at this time and I think we've got to probably sort of take stock of how exhausting and emotionally draining the last 2 seasons have been. When you get to that sort of high, I mean, it's like,
and then add onto that as well, the season before that was COVID.
Yeah. Well, he got relegated, didn't he? So I mean, obviously he's not quite responsible for that, but got us relegated, got us promoted, FA Cup quarter-final. I mean, it's like it must just be like an addictive drug, this sort of managerial thing, and just to sort of be. I think the expectation was higher this season. I think there was an expectation that football would be better. I don't know. I wouldn't want to even begin to hazard a guess as to how much that was mandated. I suspect subtly. I don't think our owners are the kind of people that are going to get involved in that level of detail. But there certainly was an expectation, and the players that were brought in clearly suggested that. But I just think, and maybe one day Paul will come back and sort of tell us, I just can imagine after such a roller coaster, just being absolutely mentally knackered. I really think I just think he always suggested it himself. He just said in one interview, he's like, I just don't know what to do. I've got no idea.
Sorry, I was going to say, he did say in the last season, his main thing he kept banging on about was I was looking forward to a holiday. He mentioned that a few times. So I think you're right. And also, I think, we've said this before, but I think we underestimate that every season he's been here, he then had to change the squad entirely. So a relegation team left, and then he put one together that got up unexpectedly. Then he had to put one together that was in a different league that he wasn't expecting to. So I can imagine he was knackered. And I think it's a case of there's two entities going 2 separate ways. The club's going one way with its recruitment staff and how it wants to go, and Paul is going more the other way, because you listen to Jason and he talks, especially when the recruitment process was going on, about teams and collective responsibilities. And you hear Artell say about he needs to speak to Joe Hutchinson about how far we are with players. Seems to me we have an identity that the club and the owners want us to be, and that's how we play. Everything else then has to fit in that. And it's not a manager that comes in and one manager says, right, we're going to play, Russell Slade long ball, and then a new manager comes in, we're going to change all that round because they want to play a more possession-based game. Jason and Andrew have obviously had a look around the football pyramid and see the teams that do well have an identity and its continuity. Obviously not like this, but you look at teams like Brighton and Southampton, not so much now. When they lost players and lost management staff, it was just a revolving door, and we just put people into those processes. So that's obviously what they want to do. And I just think with Paul, he came in to dig us out a hole. He didn't manage that, but then he got us out of the league. And any other manager I think that had gone earlier on, I think the fact it was Paul Hurst, he's got a lot of history here, and he's got a lot of respect, rightfully got a lot of respect here. I think they probably just let him do as much as he could do before they moved it on. But I think they'd have always wanted to get here.
I think it's a nice little get up. It'll be interesting to see. I think I've mentioned it before, but I think this is a really good time to bring in a new manager. If you want to bring one in, I don't think there's a better time. It gives you a bit of time to assess the players you've got around you and the atmosphere, and it also allows you a little bit of time to work on who you can do, because in a month you can then start bringing in your own players. It's just great that I think we've started quite strongly, and thanks to Ben and Sean, we're now on 5 league games without a defeat. And all of a sudden, that is that little, that's one of the things I would say about Hurst, is that he was very keen on that part of it. It's like, at cricket, you got to keep that, got to keep the scoreboard ticking over. And it is a tight league. Andrew Niles says we're 8 points off the playoffs. We've got Harrogate and Newport again in the next couple in our next 2 games, both teams of which we can overtake if we take wins off them. And you can find yourself in mid-table, by the end of, before we even hit Christmas. And that is, looking far too ahead, but it's also a nice place to be. Mike, you had your question. The bespectacled man in the back.
It was just one thing that I was going to say earlier, and I'd forgotten. I just really want to say it was talking about mindsets and positivity and things, and giving all that to Artell. What I would say is that at the fans forum, I think Ben Davis gave a really good example. I think again Ben and Shaw need some plaudits for it. He said was practicing free kick routines, and one of the players said, "What if it doesn't work?" And he said, "What I'm trying to do is say to them, what if it does?" And I think that's a very subtle thing, but I'd imagine that goes a long way with this group of players to stop worrying about what if it goes wrong. So I forgot to mention it, but I thought it did need they did need a bit of credit for it.
And there was a bit in the when Artell was doing the warm up when he said, I can't remember the exact phrase, but I think he was saying you can't play with fear. They were obviously doing sort of little warm up routine, and if you listen carefully, he's shouting, he's like, "Don't play with fear. You're not going to have that sort of time or the ability to be sort of scared in a game or something." So clearly, there's a kind of mentality issue that is being identified. Almost maybe the first thing that he needs to do is just quickly turn that around. We know we've got the players. We know they can all play. We've seen them do it. We've seen them do it this season. Let's be fair to Hurst. It's the throwing away leads that's got us to the situation that we're in. So we're clearly able to get to a decent position. It's just the sort of finishing it off situation that we sort of find ourselves being pretty poor at. So we can play mentality wise. You're absolutely right. I think he's, whether Sean and Ben and then he have identified that. Who knows why that crept in, but nice to see it sort of being addressed, and nice to see them playing without that sort of fear now, because it's good to watch, isn't it? It's good. It actually makes for some sort of nice football, brings the fans on board. Back to a sort of conversation we were having a few minutes ago, but the home atmosphere, clearly needs to be addressed. I love when he talked about, when Artell talks about the fact that, once upon a time it was bit of a scary place to come to, make it uncomfortable again. Sadly, I've been to only a couple of games in the last 2 seasons, and they've both been absolutely dire, just really, really miserable. When I took my boy up, and you sort of go for this big weekend, and you do steals, and you do the sights, and then you get to London Park, you're like, just please, I'm just trying to convince a kid born in the South to be a Grimsby Town fan. I've got enough troubles as it is with this job, as it just make it a decent game. And sadly, we haven't had it. Just about gripping on to getting him to support Town at the moment. But stuff like that will help massively. It really will.
It's not as if, we've said before, I think it's not as if we've struggled too much in games. We've got strikers and wingers that have scored a lot of goals. It's the other end, which was the massive shock this season. And I think we just, it was very un-Paul Hurst-like. I think that's what happened this season. We don't have many leaders that I've seen on the pitch, and players like Luke Waterfall are not having a good season. And I think a combination of all that starts to build up and led to where we got. But if he can build him back up as he looks like he's doing, then yeah. As I say, yesterday was one of the most entertaining games and most absorbing games I've watched for a while.
And it's a really interesting one, isn't it? We've scored more goals than Barrow so far this season, who currently sit third. They've only scored 27. We've scored 29. And in terms of goals conceded, we've only conceded 2 more than Wrexham have this season. So, granted, we just got to put them out in the right game, in the way. Richard Young says the Wimbledon game being called off might be advantaged to our advantage. Gives Artell 2 weeks in January to look seriously at getting players in and working close with the team. And on that, Richard, we need to really push with Bruce, who's been, advocating it. The youth team have to play Millwall on this, and that Saturday, the 6th of January, when we don't have a game, is a massive opportunity to get the youth team into the Blundell Park, absolutely pack it to the rafters, I don't know, make it £5, whatever, and try and get a record attendance for a youth game. Now, I know there might be issues. They might even be playing on that day already, and the league might take precedent. There might be the same for Millwall as well. But that game surely someone can look at it and try and work it out. That's a better opportunity for those players at Blundell Park. Everyone's got a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff to look forward to then as well, and everyone will have been sick of dry January by the 6th of January, surely. So it'll be well worth doing.
I think it's something we'll definitely ask them on Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'd be fully behind that. Absolutely. Get them on there again. Get a crowd in there.
Get it on YouTube.
Yeah. Get a crowd in there, not only to, try and get them into the next round, but also, as we said the other time, try and get them used to playing in front of a crowd. And it might only be a 1%er, but if you can get them a little bit more up to the speed of playing in front of big crowds at Blundell Park, then that helps their development. The only thing I would be wary of is potentially, especially after yesterday, there may be an element of where they don't want anybody on that pitch for a couple of weeks. If we've just gone through a wet December and we've played a few games on there, they may want it to have 2 weeks with nobody on it to try and restore it. Because another thing about yesterday is they have spent a lot of money on that pitch and the drainage, and I don't think they'll want to ruin it. So that's the only problem I could see, other than
hopefully it'll be all right, because it's 2 games between now and then at home, so you never know, that might be enough time. But it did get a fair beating yesterday, and it got a fair beating on Tuesday night too, which is interesting. Women's fine. Yeah. Just could you imagine in that sort of wet mud bath? Just all you're allowed is Astro boots, or those little plastic ones. The women's game, unfortunately, not as lucky. They didn't have a blotter at Wintringham, and unfortunately that game got called off this afternoon. We'll continue to keep you updated on when that game will be replayed. But it's an interesting part of it. Where do you think, John, in terms of where the squad is now, where would you think that Artell will be looking to strengthen, and what has been your overriding thoughts so far of this season, given we haven't had a chance to chat to you about it?
Where he can strengthen, I hope he's going to be giving a lot of the players and some of the fringe players the last few weeks a good look. I can imagine that players like Luke Waterfall, maybe even Mishy, are starting to sort of think about next season, possibly even January. For me, I don't think we need to get too many out. I think it's more of a case of bringing reinforcement in and bringing competition to places. So if we can get Vernon back, if we can get Khan, back playing minutes, maybe that solves the winger problem. I think he might look to that as one position, certainly a central mid, because we seem to be sort of lacking in numbers there a little bit. Definitely, I'd like to see another striker coming in, because if, like we saw yesterday, if Pike and Wilson are injured, that really leaves us fairly short with now 30-year-old Danny Rose. Defense clearly is the area where we need to strengthen, and I'd be interested. What do you two think about a goalkeeper now? Because I think
exactly the next question I was going to ask, because Harvey made some great saves yesterday.
Alex was telling me off for looking down. I was writing my list.
Sorry,
and I think I went on a bit of a waffle there, but I think my overall point is I don't think we need to ship too many out. I'd like to see us bringing a few more in for competition more than perhaps replacement. I was definitely of the opinion that we needed a new goalie, and I'm now sort of slightly changed my mind on that. He's been given a run of games. I think it would knock his confidence if you suddenly took him out of the team, brought someone else in. He doesn't seem to be doing much wrong as far as I'm concerned. So I think I'd be happy to see him. I think the longer question is obviously long term with Eastwood on the deal and him on loan. But for this season, I'd be happy to see him keep his place.
We do have this is what I was counting. We do actually, because it surprised me when I was counting it yesterday. We have 24 senior members of the squad.
So we do need to let some go then, because that's the limit,
so there's 24, and that's without the youth lads. That includes Ainley and Andrews, but that's everybody that's not a first year or second year. So I think what he want to do is he probably want another keeper, somebody more experienced. And the problem is you've got Cartwright.
But what then? I guess in terms of following up on John's question, are you looking for someone to come in straight away as that number one person, or are you looking for a Sam Russell goalkeeping, annoy Steve Crowsden, and also
I think what you're looking for is somebody that can come in if Cartwright's form slips, and somebody that can be a number one next year. Because when
you're looking to try and move Eastwood on already. I don't mind that thought. I'm not against
it. I think he's decent enough as number two, but you won't be able to move him on this quick. I think then
you can get him on loan somewhere there, couldn't you? Scunny could take him some tiny little non-league club.
I don't think at this level another keeper might not break the bank, but I do think with the centre backs we need 2 more in. I think we need 2 centre
Brian
backs.
Bennett.
But I think if you manage to move Luke Waterfall on, he's been here a few years. He's a senior pro. He's the captain of the club. He's probably on a few quid. So you've probably got a little bit of manoeuvrability there. One thing I was thinking about when I was talking to Matt Dannett about this yesterday is I think he'll want another midfielder. I just get the feeling he'll want another midfielder. And the problem I have with that is who's he going to move out? Because most of the midfielders I'm quite fond
It'll
of.
be Clifton. I think it'll be Clifton.
Well,
I love him.
Yeah. If Harry moves above, then fine. I don't think we'll make the choice to move him on if we don't need to. And when you look at it, you're probably looking at Gav Houlihan as the person that he probably would move on out of that. And I don't like that because I like Gav. But when you look at the list of midfielders, we said this pre-season, most of them you'd make a case for. In Green's case, you'd argue that we need somebody like that. So we need that sort of player.
Someone a bit different. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got Clifton, who you're not going to move down. You're going to wait.
Because he can play everywhere.
Yeah. You got Curry, who's a young lad you want to develop. You've got Hunt, who he thinks is the new, South Yorkshire Iniesta. Conte, who you cannot. Yeah. You cannot move Conte on because he's going to be an asset and he's a great player.
Well, it depends how much someone comes in for him in January.
Yeah. But you've got Andrews on loan. So then if you want some midfielder, he's going to have to probably move Gav on. He probably wants a striker and a winger as well, because we've only got Rose at the minute. We've got Pike, who's injured, Wilson, who's injured. They've both not write-offs and crocs, but they've had a few injuries, so you've got to think they're probably going to have a few more. And then yesterday, your Rose getting concussion away from not having a striker. So those are what I think he needs to do.
I'm looking forward to a revitalised Charles Vernon coming back into this team. He must be chomping at the bit to try and get in.
I thought that last night. I thought he'll be once he's up to speed and if he can get into that mindset, the rest of the squad, I think he'll be absolutely fantastic in this team.
I agree. I think everything there, Mike. I think we sort of both came up with a similar list, and I didn't mention Gav, but I had thought about that, and the other thing is age. I think you look at someone, if you look at Clifton, he's got years on his side. Gav's at the point now where he's still got a few years in him, but probably at the right time to start thinking about his next move at some stage. I don't know if now, I don't think January is necessarily the time, but if he went out on a high and sort of with sort of warm feelings at the end of the season, I think most people would understand that. He doesn't seem to be getting a huge amount of looking at the moment, does he? Anyway, I don't think
that's sort of where I was coming from. No, he's not really played, and I love Gav Houlihan to bits, and I wouldn't want him to go. I'm just thinking, what will David Artell do?
Yeah.
And when you look through the list as we just have, that's the one I come up with, is the one that if nobody gets poached above, that's the one that is most likely to move on. Unfortunately,
I also wonder how much influence Artell's sort of youth experience was in the interview process, and how much, going back to that sort of, can we get the youth FA Cup game on Saturday at 6? I wonder if he'll have a sort of influence on that. Maybe he'll want to see how those young players can step up on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday in front of a slightly bigger crowd. I hope he's having a look at a couple of them, because by the sounds of it and what we saw from last week, there's a couple of them that aren't maybe ready to make the step up, but you'd like to start maybe just slowly integrating into the team, into the sort of first team on the bench, bringing on for 5 minutes when we're, comfortable, if that is ever a position we're in. So yeah, I mean, I certainly think, based on the fact that there's those numbers. I mean, and Andrews actually had a couple of really good games recently, but I'm not sure we'd miss him hugely. But yeah, if it's a case of bringing some people in and maybe looking to bring a couple up from the youth team, I think that might be the sort of way forward.
Well, he doesn't have a problem with it, does he? Because I didn't realise until after the game really how young that midfield was. Was Harry the oldest in that midfield? And I know Harry is getting on a bit now. Well, not on a bit, but he's not the 18-year-old that we remember breaking through. But he's got Conte, Hunt, and Clifton, and that's a very young midfield against a very good Crewe side that score a lot of goals. Who obviously, he's obviously got the bollocks to put them in there.
I was just agreeing with you both. So here are some of the thoughts that have come through. John Lewis says Vernon is nowhere near as good as Ganawa, Isa and Khan, and should get shipped on. I don't agree with that, John, but it'll be interesting to see where he is. He is certainly a streaky player from what we've seen. So maybe at his lowest he isn't as good, but I would like to see him in it. And he should be given a chance.
Just on that, his best form for us was playing under Holloway, who was not as obviously free-flowing as attacking. But I know in his first season, he was letting him go and off the leash a little bit. So I'd be interested to see, whilst they're not the same sort of managers, Holloway was more let your attackers attack in his first season than maybe any of the other ones were, especially Jolly. So I'd be interested to see how he plays in this style. I think he's a good player. I really think he's a good player.
Other ones as well. So Taylor Blee says, Paul says, Holohan scores goals compared to some in midfield. Yeah, that's true. But I'm not moving Conte on because he doesn't score as many. And I think one of the things we've always talked about with Gav is that he's either 8 out of 10, or he's a 4 or 5 out of 10. He's a very hot and cold player. He doesn't have that consistent level, which, at times we've been very dependent on his performances to bring us results, and hopefully that won't be the case going forward. Taylor Blee says, I think for Waterfall and Gav, wait till the end of this season. I think they have the character and experience for this team. I think a goalkeeper and centre back for competition, and maybe a similar upcoming striker to learn off of Rose. John Lewis says Clifton has played 6 million games, so age isn't an issue as he has the experience. And John Lewis comes back. Vernon, even at his best, was a 1 in 4 game player. I think you're being very critical, John.
He's not played many in centre midfield.
No, that's true.
He's played 3 million in centre midfield.
And I guess, is that it for everything? Have we got anything else to add? It's gone quite quickly tonight. Certainly quicker than last week. We're pulling teeth out.
You see how much football we talk about when we haven't got Sam to take the piss out of.
That is very true. Yeah, that's very true. I got
Bruce telling us old stories.
That's true. That is also true. I can talk about games in 2001. Does that help?
No, not really.
Oh, fine. That was a good season.
I think I'm looking forward to Thursday, because I think I said this to you, Alex, that they've just had a fans forum, so hopefully a lot of the questions we usually get around training ground, filling in the corners, toilets, have already been answered, so we can go into some more niche and unusual sort of areas that people go into. I
think on the owners, I think you've got to give them a lot of credit. This has probably been their big first football test, hasn't it? Bringing Hurst back was a bit of a no-brainer. I think, we could say we rode our lot, but they invested and they gave him what he wanted. This has been the first time they've really had to think about the football side of things. They've talked a lot about the culture, the values, the infrastructure. Ultimately they've left the football to Hurst. Now it's, the first big decision. And like we say, based on the first 2 weeks, it looks like it's worked, and we like what we've seen and we like what we've heard. So I think they've got to get a huge amount of credit. And I guess you'll ask them, a bit about that, but also about plans to replace Debbie and the like. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time to chat to them.
That's the bit that surprised that is for me. It's a long, it's a talk about being knackered. You've just replaced your manager, and now I would say the second most important position in the club is also up. So it'll be interesting to see. The questions I would love to know about that is, since they first appointed Debbie, obviously was in local, business in Grimsby, has the portfolio of people that are applying for that job changed now due to the, Jason's articles in the Guardian, the FA Cup run, the additional exposure we now get as well, and whether or not they're going to go down that route, because Debbie didn't do anything within sport. Are they going to go down that route, or are they happy to explore it? It's a really interesting one, and both Andrew and Jason, I imagine, have gone through that process in a couple of times in their career. So it says well that Debbie's been promoted, and I wonder if that's changed the scope of it as well. There's too many, and I'm slightly worried we'll dictate it and no one will get any of their questions asked. I also want to know if flasks are allowed in, but
it's just this week we won't have the 35 minutes of asking the stadium question, the training ground question, the corners question, and the toilets question. We can get on from them.
Mike, can I have a little dig at our podcast crew when we put out for a quick who's going to be free today? It was quite tumbleweedy, wasn't it? John, came on as super sub. Wonder if
he's
that's
the only
be
good
the
at
same...
social at the N35.
He's Manny Desaruve. Don't discredit him like that. He's Manny. But do you think we're going to have the same problem on Thursday?
No, me and you won't be on.
No, that's true. I think we need to give everybody else a go. Last couple of things before we go. Taylor Blease says, last thing, did you all have a Sunday lunch? Have a good night, chaps. I did, Taylor. I had chicken.
I've not got over the chicken thing.
What do you mean?
The £9 chicken.
What £9 chicken?
From the other week when you told me to go to Costco. I've not
got
listen
to your own podcast, Alex.
No,
you don't listen
really.
to me, no.
Even I know what he's talking about.
It wasn't £9 in Costco, was it?
No, it was £9 at Asda, and you told me to go to Costco.
Yeah,
it was
£4.50.
Yeah,
£4.50. But I went to Asda.
So no, I've not had a Sunday dinner.
The problem with Costco is it opens at 11, which means we're already halfway through doing the roast potatoes by then. So it's not really good logistically to then have to go to Costco at 11 and then come back, which is a shame.
Get it the day before. I mean, is that
no? Because then it's not warm, and then I've got to reheat a chicken. What kind of mad sociopath are you?
Or as somebody said here the other week to me, just
is this the 10 minutes when we talk shit?
cook your own fucking chicken.
No, I'm not doing that. You seen how much it is to use your fucking oven? That's the first swear word of the day. Sorry, Ben. What I didn't do is for you. So give me 2 seconds for everyone who's listening. Apologize. We're just going to remove everyone so everyone can see the background because Ben liked it. There you go, Ben. I hope that was helpful. I'll send you a picture of it if you want to, but it's Blundell Park in the snow because it's now Christmas. Ben wants to know, though, we all need to know what sandwich Jason made David at his house. That's a very good question. These are the sort of questions, Ben. Make sure you put them on Slido when we put it up.
I
bet it wasn't a cooked chicken one, was it? I bet he had to cook his own fucking chicken.
Yeah, that's true.
So
what are you going to say, Jason?
When I heard Jason say this, it reminded me of a story. I won't mention names, but I worked for a publishing company that produced a popular politics magazine that was chaired by an MP at the time, and he bought. That's the one. He bought the soon-to-be publisher to his house to make him lunch and to interview him. And the guy who got the job eventually, he said this MP was so out of touch that his help was out for the day, but offered him a cup of tea or coffee, and he got a coffee and got back a cup of gravy instead. So I wonder if Jason, I assume Jason's slightly more in touch than that, but yeah, this is sort of slightly similar, although slightly more damning story on those doing the interviews.
Didn't Uncle Albert do that in Only Fools and Horses with a Christmas dinner?
Yeah, but this guy he wasn't a multi-millionaire MP at the time, I don't think.
Jesus Christ.
That's the state of our nation.
What have we got? We all need to know. Well, I assume, Taylor, you mean Debbie. Well, Debbie said on the forum, a person from the EFL praised the management of the club compared to others. So I assume they thought we need someone like Debbie to go in, which is a good thing. And that can only highlight that we're getting the best out of people. Definitely seems like Debbie's stock has gone up during this job. Okay, yeah, that's great.
Always nice to have a friend at the EFL as well, by the way. Not obviously that to be favourite, but it's always nice to have a friend.
It is. Certainly when they keep going through Blundell Park and finding holes they didn't find when Fenty was in charge. Oh, this roof needs doing as they kick it off.
Frank Drebin out of like police squad just stood in front of the fireworks. Nothing to see here. Disperse.
Right.
Paul
Dawson has pulled the pin. What do we think to Boris Hat saga? Good advertising for the club. Paul, I do not like it. I don't like that it's a part of the inquiry into the deaths of nearly 200,000 people in the UK. And one of the key men responsible for it is wearing our hat. I have no control over it. And I've not got so wet and wound up by it that I've decided to put out a petition, which was then picked up by the national media. Mike is keen to go. I assume this will be nuanced.
It'd be bullshit. So I don't think it's a secret. I'm as far away from Boris Johnson politically as you can. Member of the Labour Party and what have you. I don't like it like Alex. I hate seeing it, but it's a free country. Good luck to the fellow who's wearing a hat. You know, we're all allowed to wear hats. You know, so if you're getting wound up about it, calm down a bit. It's a fucking hat. And the reaction I had to the petition was, why? Have we not got anything better to do? The bloke is wearing a woolly hat.
Tackleberry has come in with the best version of this, saying that I think this is a dig at Sunak because he's a Southampton fan, and that's why he wears it.
So it's the most veiled. Like, what's that gif with the bloke trying to work out the conspiracy and the linkage?
Yeah. The bloke from Wrexham.
Always Sunny.
Yeah.
I don't think Boris.
Sunak wakes up on Sunday night like, that's what he's doing. Finally, I've realised what he's doing.
What was that?
I don't think Boris would have a clue, would he, about any of the FA Cup run stuff? That's the sad thing. I think there was one of the articles was sort of quoting him as saying when he was London mayor, "Oh, I like all the London teams." He hasn't got a clue. So a couple of points on this, and I think the main point is the one that you made, Alex, which is that it's really sad, and I think genuinely a bit of an indictment on national media that the focus, or so much focus, went on this when, you know, what was being discussed and what the point of the inquiry is trying to get to became something of a kind of laughing stock and a bit of a sort of, you know, almost kind of sidebar of shame, Sun page 7 filler, which is disappointing. I've got so many messages about this from friends and just, you know, sort of general. Is it just
all work stuff? Yeah, I got given
not too much. No, I think so. I mean, Mike, I get your point about the petition. I think I read it as being very tongue in cheek. I mean, there was that line about, you know, supporting Man United instead because that's more befitting to him.
I'll be honest, I didn't read it, John. I just saw it, so that could be right, mate. I think the initial reaction I had.
No, it was stupid, but at the same point, I also agree. Just, you know, let the guy wear a hat and get on with it and focus on what's important, which is other stuff. I suspect, if I'm being slightly cynical, this is a nice distraction for him, and it maybe isn't too far from a playbook that he would tend to play before. This is the second time, by the way, that Boris has done this to me. There was this video he put out just before COVID, not long after he became sort of MP or something, where there was like getting to know me, and they asked him what his favourite band was, and he said The Clash, which is one of my favourite bands. So can he just leave everything I love alone? That would just be nice for a change. Just take my kids, why don't you? Just
the worst thing is when like
if he touches Alan Poughton, I'm going to throttle him.
Say the worst thing is when distant family members start sending you links to it, like, oh, did you know this? I'm like, yes, I did know. Yeah, and the worst thing is he's got 2 hats. He hasn't got one. He's got a black one as well.
He's got more Grimsby Town bobble hats than I do.
But, you know, it's
Richard Young says people are going to lose their shit when they find out half of his children are named after the 97-98 double Wembley team.
So the question I want to, it's pretty kind of, I think it's kind of general knowledge that our local MP gave him those hats. But when did she get them, do you reckon? Has she been gifted them? Has she gone into the club shop?
There was an image of her once in the club shop, desperately trying to get getting some media attention during the Southampton game. But,
I don't know if I'd like to answer this question because our lawyers have left us recently.
Have they? Yes, they said we're not continuing to support you. Stop trying to sue Scunthorpe United for that 80 quid you gave them.
Can I write to you, John, via my solicitor?
Yeah, please do.
Right, I think we're done. Let's not talk about sycophantic morons with hair of a toddler.
How is Sam?
That's it. Especially since that's Sam. He's going to hate this. And do you know what? Second show in a trot, he's not here. John, you were sterling. I would say a good 9 out of 10. You know, nice one. Good.
Really appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
That was it.
I'll take that.
That's good. And Mike, always a pleasure. And I think we're done. And you know, it's nice to get a win. 5 games on the trot. Anyone who's bought a print, thank you very much. I've been printing like mad in the last couple of days. Mike, you'll just have to I've got to work out how much it'll cost you, about 80 quid. You know, special deal. It's twice the price. If you want one, let us know. We'll get it in. And if you're listening to this a little bit later, and you're worried it won't get to you, just let me know. I can at least send you the image or something and you can print it off up there. But thank you so much. It really does help. It has paid for the printer now, which is great because it was exceptionally expensive. And now we're now buying Mike's drinking. And we're going to at least put what should we do? Put a month's wage behind the bar for Sam come November/May/January, whenever it may be, just in case. But we should go from there. Thank you so much for listening. We shall see you all on Thursday. We'll get the information up Thursday, 7:00. Jason, hopefully Andrew and Debbie will be on the show, and you'll be going to slido.com to put them in there. And I'm absolutely filling to find the theme tune. See you in a bit. Bye, guys.
Open wide for some soccer!
And now the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 1130. Go! At 1130.
I don't think I've ever wanted to be on a stand more than my life around there. They're going crazy. Hey, they got penalty here. There'll be fish flying about there. There's no tomorrow.
What a magnificent piece of football! Really